Hello and welcome back to Ministry of Flavour. Well, today we're going to be making every grandmother's favourite dessert, lemon meringue. Let's get straight down to baking. So the observant amongst you will have noticed that we're calling this one lemon meringue crunch rather than pie. That's because instead of a blind baked pastry case, we're going with a texturally more interesting biscuit crumb base. Also, let's be honest, it's way quicker and easier than making pastry. So the first step in making your base involves a bowl, which once you've positioned dead center in the shot, you'll want to put your desired biscuit in. Here, the biscuit of choice I'm using is the ever dependable, if not exactly decadent, digestive. Who doesn't love a bit of alliteration? To turn these into a crumb, you'll want to bash your digestives liberally with a blunt force object. A rolling pin like I'm using here will work fine until they're reduced to crumbs. Now, you could blitz them in a food processor, but you will need to clean it thoroughly afterwards because we'll be making the meringue that later, and if there's one thing the meringue can't abide, it's grease in any shape or form. So for that reason, I recommend you avoid the food processor at this stage and take a leaf out of the catharsis school of cookery to work out any tension or stress you've been subliminally carrying around with you. You know you have to get it out of your system somehow. Once you've pounded your digestives into suitably fine gravel, it's time to stir in some melted butter and thoroughly work it through the crumb before moving on to constructing the base. For your base, you'll need one loose-bottomed fluted tin along with one hand begloved in a CSI-style glove like you see me doing here. Next, you want to pour your buttered biscuit crumbs into the tin and gradually shape them into yet another biscuit moon crater-shaped thing. Once that's done, this needs to take a nap in the fridge to firm up whilst you get on with making the filling. Now, for the filling, as you can see here, I've got a measuring jug, lemons, and a microplane. Here, I'm using 3 relatively small lemons, but 2 large ones would work instead. It's time to settle in and get comfortable, which in my case means sit down, as we're going to skim off all the zest from these lemons. So just be careful when you're doing that to take off only the outermost yellow layer, leaving all the white pith behind. Have patience, you will get there eventually. Once that's done, it's time to stand up and add in the juice of the lemons. Side note, I won't hold it against you if you find an easy way to avoid pips, which doesn't involve fishing them out afterwards with a fork like this. Next, it's on to separating out our egg whites from our egg yolks. You can see me putting the egg yolks into a bowl and the egg whites into a food processor. Like I said before, make sure that your food processor is as clean as possible or your meringue won't rise properly. Also, make sure that you don't get any egg yolk into your egg white or you'll need to start over. Put the egg whites aside for now and let's get on and finish the filling. So into the bowl with the egg yolks, you can see me adding 1 full can of full fat sweetened condensed milk. It does need to be full fat or the filling won't set. Next, it's time to grab our trusty electric hand whisk and beat the two together until they're combined and slightly increased in volume. Once that's done, it's time to add in your lemon zest and juice before folding everything together. Now, it's time to retrieve our biscuit crumb moon crater base from the fridge and pour in our filling. It might not look like it, but this will stay relatively set and in place once you've poured it in. Once you've done that, it's time for it to take another nap in the fridge to firm up whilst we get on with making our meringue. As you can see, I've got the 3 egg whites we separated out earlier in the food processor. Once you've found and attached the quaint whisk attachment to your food processor, it's time to power things up and start to beat the egg whites. What you're looking for eventually is the stiff peak stage, which means that the egg white retains its shape. And you can see it here from the lines it's leaving across the top of the egg white. So just be patient, it will start to rise and get there eventually. Once you've reached this stage, you want to gradually, and key word here is gradually, I want a tablespoon at a time, add the caster sugar into the egg whites. Keep going until it's all mixed in. It may take some time because you're adding it in so slowly, but you should be left with a meringue which is as stiff and shiny as a stiff, shiny thing. I really couldn't think of anything else to put in there. Now it's on to final assembly. Here you can see me delicately depositing the meringue on top of the lemon crunch base I've retrieved from the fridge. Your safe word here is delicate. It's usually best to start from the outside and work your way in. You don't want your meringue making like the Titanic on you, which is to say you don't want it sinking. And there you are. Once it's all smoothed in place and you've peaked and spiked it up to your heart's content, it's time for a 15 to 20 minute date with a 160-degree oven, which should result in something which looks like this. Now, in an ideal world, I'd advise that you leave this to cool before trying a tin extraction, but I was feeling bold and wanted to make the most of my friend variable sunlight to get the last few shots in. There we go. And looking past the slight incidence of base collapse onto the meringue, this really was delicious. I highly recommend that you give this one a go. See you next time. Hey, what happened to the lemon meringue?
What? It was really nice.